book review podcast where the book is split in two and figuring out just what is going on is always a toss-up. I'm Taylor.
I'm Jonathan. This episode we're reading Lonely Castle in the Mirror by Mizuki Tsujimura, up to and stopping before the third semester goodbye.
And things to note, obviously, this is a Japanese book translated. So culturally there's going to be things that we might miss, but I think at the very least we both understand the school structure.
Yeah. But there were some other things too, formalism that's built into the Japanese language became a point of discussion, and I almost wondered how much of that had to do with the fact that it was translated versus how much that actually got discussed in the original text, because I don't know how common, not being Japanese and not being super familiar, I don't know how common it is to be ooh, I don't know what formalism to use with this person versus that person and all that.
That is a good point. I think it is just as it is in this book. Kokoro is about the same age as a lot of these people, but because she feels so out of place and beneath them basically for her own issues going on, I think she does kind of struggle with what kind of honorific to use. But everybody else feels so casual, especially when they just drop the honorific. That always seems to surprise her.
Yeah, she almost seems offended by those moments, right?
Yeah, I think it has to do with her issues with perfectionism, which I put a note in for later. But it's not the proper thing to do, right? The way they're all kind of casually hanging out, the boys and the girls kind of crossing, a lot of that is not exactly upsetting to her, but it does throw her off. And then especially characters later, when they do something that's a bit more delinquent, when they dye their hair, that really is upsetting to her, because it is a way bigger deal. I don't know about in the year of 2024, same with piercings and that kind of stuff, and you don't go out if you're a student, you have to be in school, all of that kind of stuff.
It does seem like some of it does come from Kokoro's lack of self-confidence, though, right? That some of those other things, maybe outside of the hair dyeing, are especially surprising or off-putting to her. Yeah,
for sure. We basically start off where the first semester of school would start off, which, actually we don't. We skip April, which is when the school year would start, and we go just to May, right?
I mean, we do get kind of what would have been her first day of school right at the beginning.
With the prologue kind of dream sequence thing. Yeah, it's a mix of what happened and then what she had wanted to happen, where she's in school, a transfer student comes, that apparently did happen, I believe, right? And they're supposed to become best friends, and then that transfer student stands up to Kokoro's bully, the bully of the entire class, but that's not what happens. We do eventually learn there was a transfer student, but they did not stand up for her. Kokoro has been singled out in her class and is being tormented by her bully, Sanada, who's the perfect student, basically. So obviously she can do whatever she wants. So Kokoro went 1 month to school and then has not gone back since. So it's May when the book actually starts. And also can basically not leave the house. She's kind of just going through depression mode, is how I would describe it.
No, exactly. She's just home all day, turns the TV on, falls back asleep.
Watches something, but isn't actually watching it. She's kind of existing through those days. And she's supposed to start at this new school. It's hard to realize that it's different because it's called a school in English, apparently. They mention that a lot, which is good because we would have no idea, right? that's what they're doing. And it's a special kind of school. It's a lot more relaxed. You don't have to go every day, apparently. It's smaller classes. So Kokoro is supposed to go, her mom's excited for her to go, but she has the stomach pain, right? And obviously it's the anxiety of it all and the absolute fear. Even though it's a new school, it's still a school, and it is entirely possible something similar will happen again, or just any of that kind of stuff, right? It's just the anxiety of not knowing what could happen, assuming the worst, blah, blah, blah. So
yeah, I think this will relate to the wish discussion later down the line, but there does seem to be an interesting play between an inability to go out in general versus a specific dislike for Sanada, right? There's this, I don't want to go to any school at all, but really at the core of it is this one person. So yeah, there's there's a back and forth, I think.
Yeah, I think Sanada has just like tainted the idea of school for Kokoro so badly. But this is basically when the mirror starts to glow, and as you would, you go through it. Why not? And you end up in a empty castle and meet a who will be called Wolf Queen. And Kokoro does what everybody would do when faced with great adventure. She runs away. As she should. So she does go back, and there are 6 other kids there as well.
Yeah, I feel like if she knew that there were going to be a bunch of other kids, she would have not come.
Yeah, the unknowingness of them would have given her anxiety about the situation for sure. I think that's why she doesn't go back for a while, right? Because then she's also worried about her being away so long that she'll no longer fit in. And, like, they will have already formed, like, groups and stuff like that. So it's like, you know, that whole situation.
Mm.
But the game, it is the 7 of them are going to compete to win a wish. There's a key hidden in the house, or hidden in the castle, and there is a wishing room hidden in the castle. And so these 7 kids they're Red Riding Hoods, and I mean, we have a wolf queen, and then we also hear growling, and we know if they don't leave at a certain time, there is a wolf about. So we get that imagery.
She also tells them to eat good because they're food for the wolves. Like, it made me wonder, is that inevitable, kind of? You know, like, if the whole idea is, oh, you guys are food for the wolves, and she's willing to say that if there is a certain point where they are kind of expected to confront wolves. So makes me a little concerned for the people who don't get the wish.
That is true. Yeah, we didn't think about. I don't think I thought about the implications of the people who lose, right? But it does make the Wolf Queen interesting because there are moments where she does seem to care about them quite a bit and, like, apologizes to them and wants to, like, not disrespect them, basically. And then you have moments like this where it seems like she doesn't care if they live or not. This is a game, right?
I agree with that, but I honestly feel like those times where she's showing respect or care, it almost feels like if you asked ChatGPT to, like, act as the Wolf Queen, right? Like, just to act like you were, like, a childlike human who is in charge of this game. Like, it feels like, you know, like, not super genuine, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It feels a bit pre-planned, pre-programmed.
Interesting. So you're, like, more negative leaning Wolf Queen.
I feel so. Yes, I'm skeptical. Not that I necessarily think she's inherently malicious or anything, but I'm not getting the vibe that she's human like. Actually, I think she
yeah. I would agree with that.
Presenting as a human, and so these things where she's acting in a way that a human might are kind of just they're artificially there to make her more believable in the context of the game, not the author. Like, where the game wants her to be more friendly, like, so that way the children continue to interact with her.
Interesting. I don't know, because I feel like if she wanted to be more, like, approachable, we would see that behavior more often. I think Rion brings this up later when he gives the Wolf Queen cake. Like, he seems to be the only person that genuinely seems to want to reach out. Like, nobody else has really thought about it. They all are like off-put by her, right? They understand she's not really human, she doesn't really fit in, but he still does that. And it's like, if she wanted more of that, we would see her try more for that.
Yeah, I suppose. But I feel like the reason why it feels a bit disconnected is that there's a limit to it. Like, there's not a true understanding of when she should behave those ways. Or at least not a complete understanding. Or yeah, we would maybe see it more. But I think the fact that it is a little bit incomplete, a little bit broken, is a sign that it's not genuine.
Mm. I guess I'm, like, agreeing with the non-human thing. But I think I don't know, maybe I'm siding with my fave here. I do think she, like, cares about them to a degree. In that she wanted them to become friends. Like, she picked them for a very specific reason. And she apologizes when she says something out of turn. But also, because of that non-humanness, like, her empathy does only go so far. And, like, the purpose of this game is to be helpful, and she will grant a wish, but also she's just as fine not doing that, or the wolf catching somebody, or any of that, however that turns out. I don't know, complicated feelings. I don't know
We'll
if we'll
see
get
if
answers.
we learn more about that. Yeah, I'm not certain we will.
So even though we're set up with this game, I mean, it's not much of it. It's like a shitty scavenger hunt. Like, they're not giving any clues. They just have to search the castle.
And a scavenger hunt that they all basically refuse to engage in. For real.
Right. Well, Kokoro spends some time not in the castle because she's having, like, anxiety about the whole thing. But eventually she does go back, and the first two she really... I mean, we meet all the characters, basically, but the first two she really interacts with is Masamune and Subaru, right? Who are in the game room, what will become the game room. Because Masamune has brought a TV and, like, a game system.
Yeah, because for some reason the castle has electricity. But, like, nothing else.
No water. You, like, can't go outside. It is not livable. But they are given rooms. They have this game room set up. And Masamune wants to be in a game.
Bad idea.
Terrible idea.
Wolf Queen calls him out right away, and she was right.
Yeah, she was like, you could die. Day one.
She was like, no one's decided to wish something that stupid before.
But it also really helps you understand, like, something I kept forgetting. Like, these are children. These are babies.
Mm-hmm.
Kokoro's, like, literally 12, you know?
Yeah.
And so they obviously get into, like, little fights where somebody will say something without tact, and you're like, that's kind of weird to say, but then you're like, oh, wait, a baby. And then it's understandable.
Honestly, I probably wasn't giving them enough credit for being literal children.
Yeah, because Masamune can come across, like, very rude and harsh, and he is very intense about games. He's, like, surprised Kokoro plays video games, because she's a girl.
Yeah, honestly, that part didn't even come off as aggressive as it could have. Like, it took a minute to get to that.
He just seemed, like, so, like, narcissistic when we first meet him, because he's like, I don't go to school, but I'm so smart, and my parents don't care if I go to school. And you're like, we get it.
He's like, we're even smarter than the teachers, right? Like,
yeah. It was giving bad energy.
My favorite was that Kokoro was like, yeah, but, Masamune is a real gentleman. It's like, girl, what?
She is too nice. She thinks everybody here is, like, so put together until she learns more about them.
Which I guess is maybe part of the point.
Yeah, because it's so easy to be like, they are put together. Like, Aki is another girl in this group. It's like, oh, she's older than me. It's Aki senpai, right? Like, when they first really interact, and it's like, she's like 14, 15. She's so put together. And it's like, Aki put together? I don't think so. There is some key discussion during this first meeting, though, in the game room. Well, Kokoro kind of asks, I think she asks a bit about the key. And apparently there was, like, a lot of searching those first, I don't know how much time passed, a few days, I don't know. Nobody's found anything. Subaru apparently doesn't really care.
Or he has, like, no wish, right?
That's what he says.
Supposedly, yeah.
Yep. And he's kind of an odd character. It's hard to get a read on him, I think. But he was willing to help Masamune out. And they kind of seem like they've developed a quick friendship.
But they don't find anything, which is not shot. Like, I don't think anyone came in here thinking we're gonna find it day one anyway. I think they're like, oh, we went through the motions, like we did all the obvious stuff, so that way, we can at least check the box. But there's also not a lot of clue as to what it would be instead. Supposedly there's clues around, and I think Kokoro does find one thing, but that doesn't get explained further.
Oh, are you talking about the X in the fireplace?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was a clue or if that was somebody marking systematically where they had looked.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, it seems like... I mean, they said that the Wolf Queen was like, yeah, there'll be clues, but it just doesn't seem like there's really anything.
Yeah, it's hard because even 2 semesters in, like, there is just not a lot of key searching going on here. And they're all doing it kind of secretly on and off, but, like, they don't really talk about it until the end, and...
Yeah.
So it's just hard to get a read on, like, the situation, I suppose. But yeah, that's the first meeting. I think then Aki ends up coming in at that same day, and she seems so cool and hip and all of that.
I think the first, I have to just put it out there at the start. I got some bad vibes from Aki, and, like, right from the start, I know that Kokoro has a whole, like, thing about senpai versus, the other honorifics, but I guess there was a weird vibe when Aki uses senpai, and then Aki is like, oh no, I like when people call me that, but then doesn't use any honorific on Kokoro, and she's kind of like, oh, that's weird, like, so there almost did feel like a weird, like, ego thing that happened in that moment. Do you think that's the right reading on that?
I don't know. I think from Aki's point of view, it was just like another, this is what my school life could have been like. Because Aki apparently also has a tough time with school for reasons we don't know yet. So I saw it as like she's finally getting like a taste of what it could have been like and normally what might have happened in that scenario. So like it is like a bit ego boosty, but I don't think in a bad way.
I get that, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think she's being disrespectful, but also I don't remember all the honorifics, so I can't say for certain. But I thought it was fine.
Yeah, it gets hard to distinguish between what is Kokoro's confidence and personal opinion versus what is things that I don't understand due to cultural transfer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She also like badmouths Kokoro at the end of one scene.
Does she?
Yeah, I think it was Aki who it was like Aki and Fuka and Kokoro were like hanging in the kitchen, and then Fuka leaves early, and then it's just them two, and then they kind of just sit in silence for a moment, and then they leave, and while Kokoro's leaving, Aki's like, she must not have any friends if that's how she behaves.
Oh, I think I do remember this. I thought Aki had been talking about Fuka.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I wasn't sure who that was about.
I really did think it was about Kokoro because it was low-key awkward before that scene ended, right? Like, but when the three of them were together, it was pretty fine, pretty chipper. But then, yeah, like awkwardly silent when it was just them two. And then Kokoro mentions too, like, I think Aki wanted me to hear that, even though she kind of said it to herself, which gives me the vibe of like, I don't know, it gave shady. It kind of gave the same way that Sanada was like, what is this she said actually when she's talking to Chito though, and is like, did you hear that? Even though she wasn't actually talking to Kokoro, it was giving a similar vibe to that scene.
Okay, yeah, I can understand that. I thought it was like a Aki trying to be like, I'm gonna say this bad thing about Fuka, and like, if Kokoro hears me and she agrees, we can talk about it. But like, if she doesn't, she can pretend I didn't say anything.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense, honestly. Yeah, it's shady either way. She was also the only one who's kind of resistant to the idea towards the end too, which like is not inherent. Like I guess that's technically okay, but given that she's like the only one, it does kind of single her out.
Yeah, whatever she wants, it must matter a lot. And she has set herself up very early. Like, she introduced herself first. She was willing to ask questions. Like, she gives leader vibes, which is why Kokoro was like so impressed with her. But it is also very much like what Kokoro was worried about. Like, does that also seem desperate, right? For whatever the wish is. So it is,
that's a good point.
What does she want so bad? And is she becoming so friendly with everybody so that she can gauge where everybody is at?
Right, keep your friends close and enemies closer situation.
Right.
That would make sense. And it would explain the vibes. But then if she were doing that, maybe she wouldn't so openly badmouth. I don't know.
Yeah. It's also like hard for me to just think so negatively because she's a fucking mess. We figure out later she has a 23-year-old boyfriend.
Oof, yeah.
Criminal.
Literally. And I don't love the conversation that happens afterwards where they're like, well, I know this person who's dating this person who's way too young for them. Like, no, don't do this.
Yeah, it was really bad. But yeah, considering what we know of her situation, I can't even fault her too much for caring so much about the wish. But it does mean she could potentially be doing some shady things.
Yeah, honestly, maybe that's changing my mind a little bit. I can give her some respect for playing the game that they're supposed to be playing.
Yeah. Character-wise, though, there is another female in the group, Fuka, who's in the 8th grade, so in between Aki and Kokoro. More of kind of a bookworm, quiet character, although really not afraid to speak up if she's not agreeing with something. She doesn't seem to care.
So I was kind of liking the vibe at first of the group of the 3 girls hanging out and like becoming a bit closer. But then I found myself disliking Aki. In that, also found myself liking Fuka a bit more. I do feel like she's a good listener and like she really sympathized with Kokoro when she told the story of what happened. And I don't know. I feel like there's kind of like a more familiar vibe happening between Kokoro and Fuka that I like. So I maybe wrote at some point in my notes that there may be a ship here, but that's probably not going to happen. So
I mean, it's not, but
but I was kind of liking their vibe. I don't know. It felt good. So I like Fuka.
Yeah, Fuka does make one comment when Urashino like has a crush on Kokoro. Basically, we'll get to him. She makes some kind of comment about beautiful girls, and I think in that scenario she was talking about Kokoro. And I don't think Kokoro really took that in, but I do think it sets them up in a similar way where they're the loner character, right? And they're
Yeah. She
at
kind
a
of put
place.
herself down, right? Because I think she put both Aki and Kokoro up in that statement.
Yeah. It was interesting though, because Kokoro presumably would think she's like Fuka, right? Like, she's the outcast. She's probably not as pretty as the other girls. Or I don't know, I just don't think she thinks she's pretty, really. I don't know if she even thinks about it at all. But obviously, Sanada thinks she's a fucking slut. We'll talk about it. But they do have that kind of kinship of other girls not getting along with them. I think Fuka thinks that's more so related to, like, looks. And she's not afraid to be, like, negative towards the pretty girls. I don't know. I was thinking it was going to be a conflict between them. But they seem to be good friends now. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I didn't even pick up on that idea, so it's interesting, though. Yeah, because that might be the angle she's coming from, right? Like, that might be the difference between what has kind of caused the issues that they're dealing with.
Yeah, it also gives good insight. Like, this is from Kokoro's point of view. We don't know how the other characters see her, right? Fuka could see somebody that's pretty and well-tempered and who gets along with everybody, even the boys. And then, you know, the boys see somebody, especially Masamune, like somebody they've never really met before, a girl who likes games and has some bad opinions sometimes, but for the most part is like interesting to talk to and to play with, which is very different from what they're used to.
Yeah, I do think it's a vital part of the story that we don't know what anyone else thinks, because we kind of have to push through and think, okay, Kokoro's thinking a lot of these negative things, but certainly those aren't true. But truly, we don't know what other people are thinking, and what the, you know, just because it's a different group of people doesn't mean there won't be a social problem. Like, Kokoro might not be wrong that there's, you know, people who are gonna, I mean, she's not wrong that people are gonna be judgy and, you know, make things potentially unpleasant. So
yeah,
we talked about Subaru a bit, but not totally.
Yeah, Subaru is the same age as Aki. He like dyes his hair at some point. Aki eventually does the same.
This is interesting because I do feel like, I don't know, I'm not sure that Subaru has the strongest characterization, but I kind of was like, oh, that's interesting that he's the one who did that.
Yeah, I think he doesn't care in a way that Aki is trying to achieve.
Like, Aki cares but is trying to act like she doesn't, you're saying?
Yeah, like Aki wants to be the leader and wants to be like the trendsetter and wants to be the delinquent to be the delinquent's sake, like that kind of thing.
I think that's true, yeah.
She is kind of just playing the part of the bad boy, right?
Yeah.
And she can dye her hair now because Subaru has said you should dye your hair.
Yeah, Aki definitely does have a thing about that. I kind of forgot, especially with how much she emphasizes her 23-year-old boyfriend and like, oh, like I gotta go do this thing with my boyfriend. She's being that like classic kind of annoying relationship character.
Yeah, because I think she wants to be the delinquent.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be like a look at me situation.
Yeah, that's true. There's definitely something there.
Yeah. I think it's the same for Subaru. I do think he wants his father's attention.
Yeah.
But his father also has like another family. But Subaru himself apparently doesn't have a wish, but does seem to like want to spend time with his father.
Wonder if he says he doesn't have a wish not because he doesn't have one, but because he doesn't really care that much about it. Like, I wonder if he's like in a stage where he's maybe not happy with the state of the relationship with his father and like wants a relationship but wouldn't waste a wish on it.
Or I wonder if he's realized what Kokoro was thinking with Urashino's wish. Like, forcing somebody to care for you or spend time with you is disingenuous. So, like, maybe he's realized the only thing he wants isn't something he can actually wish for.
That's interesting. I didn't think about that. Because, yeah, Urashino's wish is definitely not on. Like, I that one's weird.
I mean, that's a lot of, like, me giving my own thoughts to him, right?
This is high speculation, yeah.
High speculation. We do not, I don't feel like the only note I had about this character was he's kind of odd.
Yeah.
And that was it.
That's about it, though. It's true. I mean, because he also really is kind of just Masamune's right-hand man for a lot of this, so.
And Aki's in this in a way, too. Like, he's always the support character for other people's ideas, I feel like. But he doesn't actually ever, like, lead the group or care about leading the group.
Where's the personality? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Well, we got some other characters. With some other personalities, so.
Well, another character we don't really know too much about is Rion, who's same age as Kokoro. He actually goes to school in Hawaii, so he's in a different time zone. He still has to adhere to the 9 to 5 Japanese time zone, though, for the castle access. I thought it was so funny when Urashino makes like a big fuss about none of them going to school, and Leon is just like, actually, I kind of do. And I wear a jersey, so I'm like sporty and I'm kind of cool. Like, I didn't say anything.
Yeah.
But I wasn't keeping it a secret either. But, you know, you can keep your business to yourself. I'm not, it doesn't matter to me. And I was like, oh my God, my favorite fucking character.
He is very, like, calm, cool, and collected, right?
Yes.
No, he truly doesn't care. Meanwhile, was it Urashino who was, like, throwing a fit about him going to school? Yeah, it's like, okay, I guess we care about this, you know? But also they do, right? Like, I mean, everyone else does seem to care a whole lot about the fact that they don't go to school. Whether or not that leads to them not wanting to talk about school versus talk about it is another thing. But everyone else does care.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because his perspective, like, his situation is so different. Like, he wanted to go to the school they don't want to go to.
Yeah, that's true.
So he's, like, missing out in a completely different way than everybody else. And also in a completely different country. So it's like, how isolating is that experience?
Yeah, it is. It's totally a different perspective. I didn't even think about that he wants to go to the school and no one else wants to.
And he must have a wish. Like, why is he there?
Yeah, I would bet he wishes to come back.
Yeah, and, like, how isolated is he that he spends his nights in the castle with them? Like, does he not have other friends?
Yeah, that's that one I was thinking about. Like, he is at a boarding school. You would think at boarding school, I mean, in the evenings you're doing your homework, you're screwing around with your friends, your roommates. You know, it does seem a little odd that he'd be anywhere but there. Also, he would probably get noticed not being around. So why isn't he being noticed?
He's just, like, someone we don't know about. And even in this situation, he's still so distant from them because end of second semester, he cannot be with them in, like, reality. Like, they're like, oh, we live so close to each other. We're all going to go to Fukushima at the same time. And he's like, I wish I could go with you, but I'm in Hawaii. Like, that's awkward for me. And he's like, so supportive about it. But, like, it is kind of sad that he was brought to this place, but he still can't interact the same way even with them. I don't know. There's just something about him. He's an interesting one, for sure.
I'm sure there's a good reason why he's so elusive. I'm sure we're going to get a lot out of him in this last part of the book.
I hope so. Like, to be fair, he can only be there later because of the time zone situation.
Oh, they also dropped that little thing of his mom came to visit and, like, made a cake but then left. And
oh yeah, she did not fuck with him.
Yeah, someone was like, your mom just dipped on you? And he's like, yeah.
Also, apparently he had nobody to share that cake with. So, like, he must have no friends, to be honest.
Honestly, though, yeah, I think you're right.
But he's my shining star. And then our last character is... Deep sigh. He is also a baby. I'm trying to be forgiving.
Yes, that is the one character that I really had to remind myself about. Like, yes, this is a child who doesn't know what he's doing. Just have to hope that he doesn't grow up to be this bad.
Yeah, he was giving, before I really, like, took in the ages and, like, remembered them, he was giving, like, shonen perverted character vibes. Like, that archetype that all of us hate, but for some odd reason they keep fucking doing.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, in this Studio Ghibli-esque book? I suppose. Because he does just fall in love with characters for the sake of being in love.
Yeah.
Which is, like, I think better and more understandable when you're 12.
Yeah, I agree, yeah. It's honestly better he get it out of the way then, right? But it's still not great, like, the way because he does just kind of pester, right? Like, he does handle it without causing someone else strife, so.
Yeah, it's a concern in, like, two regards, right? One is something Kokoro worries about. It's how he can ruin the girl's relationships with others, right? Because it either causes, like, strife between the girl group because he's, like, intruding and being weird and, like, pushy, or he says something to the boys and now the boys think negatively of the girl. Which is basically what Kokoro has experienced, right?
Yes, I mean, that was a very valid worry. And I think even if she hadn't experienced that, that's, like, a thing, right? So
It is a concern. And then the other concern is his wish. When we first hear of it, we don't know if it's changed since then. When he still liked Aki, was for Aki to like him back, basically. That was the wish.
How did I not write a note on this? This wish is like low-key assault.
Absolutely.
Like, if it were to go in. It's weird, and I don't like to think about it, but like, it's weird because I suppose if it happened, she would like him, but like, it's just not cool.
Yeah, and Kokoro mentions, like, it would be obviously disingenuous. Would it still be Aki if her emotions were manipulated like that? Like, she has these thoughts about that wish, but it's also the fact that everybody knows that wish.
Mm-hmm.
So then it must have changed when he fell for Kokoro. It must have changed when he fell for Fuka. And so now you have a character who is actively pursuing a key, seems to be, we don't know if that's changed, but had been pursuing a key that would basically manipulate one of the girl characters. And it's like, how do you feel comfortable in that situation?
Yeah, it's scary.
It's absolutely scary. So his character was kind of a mess. When he was like, I'm going back to school, all of you bitches can eat shit, I was like, whew, we've dodged a bullet with this one.
I didn't even think about it that way. I was just like, he's got some nerve, and like, I think it was supposed to be a moment of like, damn, like, we all really did bully him. Because I guess that's what it was, but I'm also like, but man, like, kids, I don't encourage bullying. But man, did he earn it? Like, he really put himself in that position. Like, people were uncomfortable in expressing their discomfort, and he was not getting the vibe, and was instead like, I'm the victim. Like, I'm being bullied because people can't handle the fact that I'm a lover. It's not just that. Like, we're just getting in the way of people's lives by doing too much, really. So I was like not happy with the whole like, I'm being bullied so I'm leaving situation.
And I understand like where he's coming from. Like, it is kind of shitty that everybody is now making fun of you, right? But I think in my notes I had like, then don't act like a fool. But regardless, it does bring into like question, what weighs more? Like, yes, you're being, I guess, made fun of or like commented on behind your back, but is that more important than basically the bullying and harassment you're doing to these girls, right? Because that's what's happening. Like, you're also being a bully. You're harassing the people in this castle. So it's like, are they supposed to dismiss their feelings because now you feel bad?
Yeah, he's like putting it on them to respond a certain way, right? Like, he's like pestering them, and then when they don't respond the way he wants, it's bullying. I mean, I guess there's other ways they could have responded that would have not been bullying, but like, it also would not have stopped him. Not that it did stop him. Like, they're doing the best. Like, it's unfair to test these girls and then be upset with the answer you get in response. Like, by pestering them, you're testing them, and because you feel like you're being bullied now that's their fault. Like, no, if you hadn't put them through something to begin with, you wouldn't have seen what the response was at all. You know?
Right, because it's also like, Kokoro does make that note, like, if, and I think we've talked about this a bit in Lake Lore too, like, if the girl says no, flat out, she's like, I'm not interested in you, which I think Aki was doing anyway, was like, I'm not interested, whatever. Like, if you say that, what happens? Well, he's 12, probably not too much.
Right.
Not to underestimate a 12-year-old, they can be heinous, but he could, which is what Kokoro was worried about, he could talk to the other boys and basically slander your name.
Right.
And then what do you do in this castle? You've become like a hysterical girl, or you've become a slut, or you've become some kind of negative amongst the group because you decided to say no to this boy.
Right. I don't think that Orochino would become directly vicious, but I do think that it's a good point that Kokoro brought that up, because that is something that's in his wheelhouse. Like, all Orochino is going to do is whine and complain or like mope, and that could turn into that.
Right. So it's like a difficult position to be in. Like, obviously it sucks that he was feeling outcasted and like bullied by this group, but I'm just going to put it out there, he was acting like a fool. Like, I don't know what else to say.
And it's just sad because, yeah, you would hope that at the age of 12, like, a girl could directly say to her male classmate, like, no, stop that, and that they would listen, but they're not, right? Like, when you're an adult, it's because they're creeps and bad people, and when they're kids, it's because they're kids and they don't understand social things. It's like, there's not, like, a good, like, time, there's no time in a girl's life where she can just say no, and it's as simple as that. Orochino has to figure that out, though. It's not up to the girls for that.
Yeah, and it's also, I don't know how this transfers over culturally, but there is like that idea of if a girl says no, you just try again.
Right. Like if they're playing hard to get, or
they're playing hard to get, or like you just have to win them over, or like that kind of stuff.
Just, like,
and
gross. Yeah.
There's a romance in that. I think we've perpetuated a romance in that, but it is gross, right? Like you said, it's like. Why is it the girl's responsibility to do that at 12? Like, she's not,
yes.
She shouldn't be teaching that lesson. She's
I just always think when you hear a story of being like, oh, like, I how did you guys meet? And the wife is like, oh, when we were in college, he just kept on asking me out, and I kept on saying no, until one day I eventually said, all right, and now we've been together for 40 years. I'm like, God, that's horrible.
Yeah.
Why is everyone telling these stories like they're cute?
But I'm assuming he gets over it. I mean, Kokoro, like, avoids the castle like the plague. She just cannot deal with it because she has gone through this before, right? And thankfully, it eventually moves on to Fuka, and Fuka, I don't think, cares at all too much.
Yes, she does not give a shit about him.
Which is perfect.
She's low-key mean to him, which is maybe part of why he's feeling this way. But I think he needs it. Honestly, again, don't bully kids, but, like, I feel like he needs a little bit of, like, a reality check.
Yeah. So, like, he is so ready to go back to school, apparently. He's like, all you bitches could never be me. And then Rion's secret, obviously, a secret, quote-unquote secret, comes out about him actually still going to school. And he's, like, super fucking cool. Urashino could never. And that kind of causes some tension. And then it seems like Urashino's gonna leave the castle for good. It's like, why would he need a wish? All these girls are interested and seem to hate his ass, and also he's going back to school, so he's fixed, right?
This
like,
also made me
fine.
think that part of why he was leaving was just because he ran out of girls.
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
It's definitely not hinted at, but it just, to me, I was like, well, he went through all 3 of them, now he decided to leave, so...
I think if he had stayed away, I would have gotten that vibe.
Well, I mean, he got beat up. Why would he not come back?
I know, he does. Okay, yeah, spoiler alert, he gets his ass beat. We do get information about his situation, though, right? Like, he had friends who were friends, quote unquote, who were basically taking advantage of him, right? He would pay for everything, and then that became the expectation. So he didn't actually have friends. And obviously, when you have a transactional friendship like that, and then you stop paying for it, you get beat the fuck up. And that's what happened.
Yep. Though, supposedly he threw the first punch, but it was not on the right track before that, so...
Yeah. I feel like him either running through the girls or being bullied by everybody in the castle, and then getting his ass beat, those were both kind of, I think, reality checks for him.
I think getting beat was definitely a reality check, because otherwise he wouldn't have come back, right? Like, him getting beat was like, oh shit, no, like, this is real shit out here. Like, I'm gonna go back to where it's relatively safe.
Right. And then he starts acting normal.
Yeah.
He becomes way more like a normal human fucking being.
I guess he went through all the hoops, right?
Yeah.
He also was totally being bullied and, like, refuses to say that. And Kokoro even says, like, I forget what the comment was, but effectively, like, he wasn't being bullied, apparently,
Yeah, he, like, was refusing to see it as bullying. He got into a fight. That's all that happened. He got into a fight.
And I could almost understand what he was saying at first, of, like, sometimes things look like bullying when it's kind of just horseplay. This was not horseplay.
He's a bit delusional across all boards, but he's 12. He's coping. What more could you ask for, I suppose? Yeah. At least he's not, it's seemingly, as interested in a wish, and he seems to respect everybody in the castle at this point. I'm making an assumption on that because he's choosing memory over wish, which we can talk about later.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the vibe I'm getting. We've seen to clear up all of the trouble of his character. But, like, during that point where he was interested in Kokoro, I don't think we knew about what had happened to her yet, but it's not too soon after that we do, because she tells Aki and she tells Fuka, which is crazy. Big step to talk about your trauma like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we can really gauge, like, just how similar the situation was and really understand, like, why she's so anxious about everything, especially during that situation. Yeah, Chita and Kokoro went to, like, elementary school together and were friends.
So there's this other character, Sanada, who is, as we mentioned before, kind of the big kahuna in the class, I think. Is she class president? ?
She at least wants to be.
definitely like a big deal in the school, and she's got a crush on Cheetah, so of course drama ensues. Sonata basically, I don't know, it doesn't show the details of how she convinces him to do it, but it does show afterwards that she has basically asked Cheetah to insult Kokoro. He like comes back to report to her, and it's like, did I do okay? But it's like vocally mean to her, and then Sonata also is follow up mean to Kokoro loud enough for her to hear. Kokoro is quite confused at first. Things escalate a lot. So Kokoro is at home, and Sonata and a group of friends who we don't actually really get to see who is out there, potentially including Kokoro's old friend as well. And they're all kind of like demanding her to come out so she could probably get beat up because Sonata has decided that Kokoro is a threat to her crush on Cheetah. So it sounds horrifying. It's like she's literally fearing for her life. She's like, if I open that door, they're going to kill me. Honestly, like, who knows how out of hand it would have gotten with that many people there. She could not be wrong. And so she kind of just has to wait it out, and no parents come in the whole time. No one seems to like stop what's happening until they literally tire out. And that is when Kokoro decides to never leave the house again, basically.
Yeah, Sanada at the end of that altercation, like, cries a bit and is like, she just won't leave my boyfriend alone. So her and Cheetah must be dating at this point. Also makes some comments about how Kokoro likes, or it might be Sanada, it might be one of her friends, about how Kokoro
can't keep her hands off him too. Yeah.
Yeah, like, she likes when boys give her attention. She likes when boys touch her. Like, basically inferring that Kokoro is like a slut, basically, and is doing all of this on purpose. Meanwhile, Kokoro did not even know until later that Cheetah liked her at all.
Yeah, right. She was confused.
She's like, why are you saying this mean shit to me for no reason?
Like people just turn on her out of left field.
Right. And then Sanada's like, see you tomorrow, Kokoro, and leaves. And yeah, that's I understand why she would not leave at that point. Because Sanada also does other fucked up shit. Like, she looks at her when she's in the bathroom.
Yeah, that was like the first thing we got.
Yeah, super creepy, heinous shit.
Yes. Honestly, that first part I was like, bad enough. I get it.
Yeah, honestly, I thought that was like the thing.
Me too.
But it gets so much worse. And of course, Kokoro like does not tell her parents. And then it becomes worse because it's like more time has passed. And are they going to think this is as serious as I thought it was?
Where you're like, man, like I'm still processing the thing. And now because I was kind of frozen, I can't even, like, now it's so much after the thing, it doesn't even feel the same anymore. You're like, I understand that.
Yeah. So, like, she tells this to Aki and Fuko, who both think, praise her and say she's so brave because, yes, you survived something terrifying and you're dealing with it every day. Even going outside for a little bit is exceedingly brave.
Yeah.
Right? And then we kind of get that same feeling when she talks to Kitajima, which we haven't talked about Kitajima at all. We can talk about that in theories, though, but even Kitajima is like, you're fighting every day. And I don't know, that's just like, it's so weird to have somebody just like say that.
Right. Well, she didn't believe it at first. Yeah, she was like, oh, that's ridiculous. And she was, especially because she's like, she doesn't know what she's talking about, which is maybe true. Probably true. But then she's also right. Like, she's like, wait a second. I am kind of fighting every day just to like do normal things, and I can't go outside the house. So yeah, I think that's true. She needed to be told that.
Yeah. And then she obviously can like connect with Urashino in a way because she also feels like if she goes back to school or if she sees the wrong people when she's outside, she will get beat up. She will die. Flat out. She's like, I will be killed if I go outside. That's what she's feeling.
I think she's not wrong that could have happened if she opened that door that night.
Yes, I agree.
So.
I agree. With that many people, like, it could have got out of hand so fast. Mm-hmm. Like, they were willing to try and basically break in.
Yeah,
like, they were going
trying.
around her house. Yeah, it was so fucking scary. And later, like, her parents at this point have been very well, her dad's kind of classic dad, like, not emotionally there, but the mom has been very understanding.
Yeah. I was pretty impressed with her.
Yeah, she gets upset because she is like, oh, your stomach hurts again. Okay. But even that, I'm like lax about because Kokoro didn't tell her parents anything, right?
Yeah, it's crazy that they're being this chill about it, given that they have literally no context.
Right. Like, it is a kind of a crazy situation, to be honest. But the mom is being very supportive, and we find out later it's because she's been talking with Kitajima and like that school, and mostly Kitajima. Something's up with Kitajima. But the mom has just been trying to be so patient and understanding. And eventually, like towards the end of second semester, that is when we get Kokoro telling her mom about it. And her mom is like scared for her, like, and also pissed, like, and takes it so seriously.
Yeah, what a good example.
I know, I was surprised, but I was like, fuck yeah, like this mom fucking rocks. And the mom does, they go out to the mall together and they spend time together, and it's just such a nice moment of them together. I just really love the mom in this book.
Yeah, she's a good example of how to handle this stuff. I mean, very understanding, and like, I do think there's something up with Miss Kitajima because of the whole, like, it's not her fault thing. Of like, she's really, I don't know really if this can be described by progressiveness. It just, to me, feels like she knows more than she's letting on.
Oh yeah, for sure. I have textual evidence that she knows more.
Interesting. Yeah, and then like, that also doesn't really change much with the dad, though, unfortunately.
Dads are dads. All the dads in this book kind of suck. Just laying it out there.
Well, speaking of people who suck, kind of, so there's also the teacher, Mr. Ida, who, like, comes to the house because I guess Sanada was like, I feel bad about something, like, but describes it as an argument that she had with Kokoro and not as anything more, and definitely not what actually happened. So Mr. Ida, like, comes to the house and wants to talk about it, but obviously Kokoro's mom is keen on what happened already, so she listens to what Mr. Ida says, and they have a long conversation, a part of which we don't get. They bring Kokoro in, and Mr. Ida is kind of just talking about what he's gotten out of Sanada without asking her what happened in her opinion. And he's kind of just like, oh, like, we're going to be able to move on from this if we just, like, have a conversation. And that's when her mom really kicks into gear and is like, wait a second. No. You didn't even ask my daughter what happened. You're just coming to us with a one-sided solution? Get out of here. Come back when you have put yourself together, and also bring the other teacher. And maybe even an administrator. She's like, she's not having it. And it is like, it's unfortunate that we have this teacher who really has seemed to lean into, like, I have a star student, so I'm going to believe what they say right off the bat, because that is definitely not how they should do it. But I guess it is also believable, like, historically, and this is certainly not the sort of teacher I tried to be. I feel like in modern times you get that a little bit less, but it definitely exists. But it was good. I was happy to see her mother just call it out and be like, no, that's not happening. You're not doing that to my kid.
Yeah, also, it's a good moment for Kokoro because even I think Kokoro is like, I don't want to see her. Like, I don't want to talk to her. I'm not going back. Like, she stands up for herself in that moment as well. So, and it's like, there's this kind of struggle when the mom brings up transferring schools. There's this struggle of, is not going back, is transferring, is not talking to Sanada, letting her win. And I think we talked about this a bit in Lake Lore too. Like, is it running away if she transfers? Which is something Kokoro thinks about. And the fact that Sanada will probably go her entire life not regretting what she's done, and probably not even thinking about what she's done. Is that fair? I mean, no, it's not fair, right? But do you let that control your actions, right? Do you let that have power over you?
Because then it kind of becomes your responsibility, and that's not fair either.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, Kokoro could go back to school, and she could talk to Sanada, and they could try to work something out. They won't. Or she could plot revenge against Sanada and try and ruin her life. And it's like, but is that still giving power to Sanada, right? You're letting her control your life. And so while transferring might seem like running away, it's something Kokoro hasn't thought of, and this might not even be the solution for her, right? Because it is dependent on what she feels is right, but it could also be less running away and just taking back your own life and, like, starting fresh, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But there is that concern of, am I letting them win? And, I mean, it's it's difficult. It's a difficult situation to be in, especially at 12.
Yeah. It makes me wonder why Sonata even brought this up to Mr. Ida. Like, why is she talking about it?
This is what I could think happened, right? Kokoro very clearly is not coming to the school. And so if Sanada makes some kind of comment feeling bad, I feel so bad, like Kokoro and me, we had a small argument and now she won't come back, and I feel so guilty. And so that makes her look good, right? Because she's feeling regretful. And then also that means if Kokoro does come back, you get to torment her again.
Right, and she's got the leg up for having been like, oh, like, I feel so bad about it.
Yeah. So I could see that being the situation as to why it would be mentioned.
It's just I'm shocked that it would even come up.
I mean, I think when you like being cruel, which I think Sanada does at this point in her life.
She wants her toy back.
Yeah, I wish she changes, but yeah, you're right. She wants her toy back, which is a terrifying thought. Well, that's a Kokoro's situation. And you know what? She's gonna go back, but we'll talk about that later.
God. Stress.
The group spends Christmas together. We get our Christmas episode.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
I think it's who suggests it? Is it Rion or is it somebody else?
But Rion also can't really come.
He can come later, yeah. And he brings the cake, which is the most important part.
My gosh, yeah.
But yeah, they decide to spend, I think, like the day after Christmas together. And then eventually at some point, because time is an illusion, I think it's Aki and Masamune who bring up the key, like point blank. And they decide basically, we should all work together, right?
Mm.
We can find the key and the room and then decide or draw lots of who's going to use the key, and we should save it until March 30th. So basically, they decide to be a team in this, but still keep the castle open, right? Because as soon as you make the wish, the castle closes. It doesn't have a function anymore, right? So they're all planning to save it until March 30th and make their wish on the last day. And then the Wolf Queen just pops up, and she's like, by the way, oof, forgot to mention, she basically says, if you don't make a wish, you will keep your memories of this entire space. But if you make a wish, you will forget ever coming to the castle.
And not only that, all you'll remember is the same depressive state you were in before this.
Yeah, basically you lose all the progress, right? And we just formed a party, but it will split, is what I'm assuming. Because you have wish team versus memory team, right? Aki wants the wish. Urashino wants the memories. So it's gonna be awkward.
It does bring the question of whether or not meeting on the outside would enforce, like, if that would mean that they will definitely remember each other even if they don't remember the castle.
Right, that is a good question, because, like, it's in the same time frame, right? But if you meet outside of the castle in reality, will those memories get taken too?
Right. And does that just lead the group to remember each other but forget Rion?
That's true too.
It makes me wonder why Rion is so separate.
But they're in a sticky situation. We're gonna ignore it for now. Because something else happens. I mean, one, they all figure out they were supposed to go, or are going to the same school. And then they figure out, even in elementary school, some of them were together. They just never realized. Which could be seen as weird, I have an idea, but I also think it's like, you just don't notice people, right?
Well, they did make a big scene. I forget which two characters were, like, in the same grade at the same school, and they're like, that's kind of weird that they didn't know each other, but I don't know if that actually matters.
Yeah. I have some ideas of why it could be weird. There was other weird comments made during this whole situation, but yeah, like, getting in contact now feels a lot more feasible, because they're all together, right? And Masamune, apparently, his parents are not as chill as we thought, or he's not as uncaring, I suppose, as we thought. He is going to be put in, like, a private school.
Well, it's because they hate public school.
Yeah. And so, but the worry is, and Kokoro thinks about this, is if he does not go to Yukishina anymore, will he be cut off from the castle? Which doesn't exactly make sense, because Rion doesn't go. Like, he actively goes somewhere else. But I also think maybe this is just me inferring his character. Maybe he's worried about becoming distant from the group, right? Because if he does go somewhere else, his 9 to 5 is shot. He cannot come back to the castle, right?
Yeah, that's the bigger concern.
And he also loses his connection to everybody else. So he's like, if I go to Yukishina for one day, even if it's just one, My dad will shut the fuck up. And then we can start again in April, right? When the school year starts again. Instead of going in January, which honestly, I understand his point.
Yeah.
Transferring in January when your school year ends in like March, crazy.
I agree.
Why would you go?
Silly.
Just stay home. So he's like, if we all go together one day, we could all hang out in the library or the nurse's office and we could be a team. And this is like, let me remind you, this is like the most emotionally vulnerable this character has been like this entire time. Other than when he was talking about RPGs.
Yeah, that's true. He did get a bit emotional about that.
Yeah. But this is like the first time he's really asked for help. And he's kind of opened up about his situation a bit. And I think it is everybody, even Kokoro. They're all kind of like, okay, January 10th, when the third semester starts, we're going to all go together. And I mean, other than Rion's kind of like, that's great. I wish you the best. What else can he do?
Poor guy.
That's where we ended. So, any thoughts about what might happen?
Yeah, so I'm concerned about this day back, I have to say.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like people are just putting themselves back into bad situations, and I'm sure we'll be following Kokoro specifically. I know the idea is to go straight to the nurse's office, but we know that's not going to happen. They would never written this in just for everyone to do that, so yeah, I do think there's going to be some level of confrontation with Sanada, and I don't think it's going to be good.
Yeah, I do think we're going to have a run-in with Sanada. Or, because it's like, even if you go to the nurse's office, if you go to the bathroom once, right, like, you're fucked.
This came out of left field, but what if they find the key in the school?
Holy shit.
I don't know, because what if there's like a tie between the castle and the school, you know? I mean, there's got to be a reason that they're all from the same school.
The school does matter.
I have no good reason to believe that that's what would happen based on the description of the game from, despite being shady, I think a reliable character in the Wolf Queen.
Yeah, because I don't remember if she specifically says the key is in this castle.
Yeah, I think she does, though. Either way, I think today's going to be terrible.
Yeah, I think it's going to be terrible for every single one of them. We might get some interesting insight into Subaru.
Yeah, we might get some context for a couple characters, right? It's like what they are struggling with, yeah.
I mean, another possibility is they cannot go to the school together because they exist in different times.
So, this idea, okay, times, do you mean like parallel universes? Or like literally like 10 years ago versus now?
I mean, it could be parallel universes, but I was thinking more of like different years. Okay,
if it's different years, then I'm going to have a theory about who Mizuki Tsujimura really is. Because then that ties into a whole other thing. I don't think it could be very interesting, but I don't think that's what it is.
The only reason I have this theory, it's absolutely not what's happening here. But the reason I think about this is because when they're talking about all going to the same school together, and they're talking about like the geography of the area, Aki and some other characters like, oh, do you remember this McDonald's?
Wow, you really hung on to that.
Well, because Fuka and Kokoro are like, I don't remember there being a McDonald's. And I was like, okay, maybe Fuka's just not been outside in a while.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But Kokoro has only not gone outside for like not that long, like a couple months, like I guess almost a year, right? But is that like enough time for a new McDonald's to become the spot? It felt like out of place and weird and oddly important.
I think it could, like, I don't know. I think it could be enough time. I thought it was kind of to emphasize the fact that they hadn't been outside in a while to like these places that they maybe used to frequent.
Yeah, it could just be a showing of Aki and whoever else aren't afraid to go out during the day, even though they're supposed to be in school. Meanwhile, characters like Fuka and Kokoro do not go outside, right? It could just be that. But, you know, my brain. What can I say?
Because for a second, I did think parallel universes. It's like, okay, I could see that because one thing we really don't understand is like the location of the castle, like where presumably it's not like Earth, right? Like it does seem to be kind of a liminal space, but like maybe that liminal space exists between worlds or something like that. I also have a theory of it, like with what I was talking about, of it being entangled with the school. Like maybe it like somehow kind of co-occupies space with the school in whatever like parallel universe it exists in, something like that. Mm-hmm. So I don't feel strongly about any of that, but I could see those things being possible.
I will say we have 1 semester left. Do I think we're going to deal with time travel? No.
Yeah, it would be a little late for that, huh?
It would be insane to deal with it this late. I also think it would diminish the relationships in the book. So yeah, time travel for me. We could really get into Kitajima if we wanted to now.
Okay, one of the thoughts I have is I think she has been to the castle as a student. Like, she talked about going to the same high school too, right? And so she seems to be a bit in the know. And so my reason, I think there's a few reasons she could be in the know about the castle, but my reason is that she has done it herself. That doesn't explain why she would know that Kokoro is doing it and like what has happened to her to make the lonely castle appear to her, or like her to be available to it, but it does seem like she's interacting with it. The other theory is that she's somehow like either is or is connected to the Wolf Queen, like a human counterpart to her, or just literally her, and therefore she's able to manipulate the situation a little bit by, you know, like talking Kokoro's mom down and being like, no, like it's not her fault, and like kind of just like be easy on her, because then it lets Kokoro be more involved with the castle, and whatever the castle journey is going to be what helps her.
I think for sure she's tied to the castle because she has talked to Kokoro, obviously. She's also talked to Urashino, and she goes towards the end of this section and she talks to Masamune.
And that was like unannounced, unconnected.
Right, and she says it's because she'd heard about him from his friends. That's how she knew about him. And it's like, okay, but who are his friends? Like, and like, why are they talking to you? If they were people at the school, that's a little weird. It's obviously not his parents, so his friends must be the people in the castle.
Right, and she's actively not at the same school that he came from. Right, like she's at the other school, the other program.
Yeah, the School of the Heart, whatever it's called. Yeah, so there's no way she could have heard about Masamune and also referred to a group of his friends unless she was talking about the castle and knew of him because of the castle. So I think, like, for sure she is tied to the castle. I think she is working in tandem with the Wolf Queen, maybe. I think the Wolf Queen displays, like, inhuman qualities, right? I think she does have a certain apathy, right, of whether characters get the wish or they don't get the wish. I do think that's true. And I think that's fine because she's not a human character, right? Like, that's the kind of creature motivation I think that makes sense. That's sometimes missed with characters like this. But the Wolf Queen, I think, does care about this group in that she's very intentional of who she chose and when she gives information. Because she interviewed people, assumingly, like, she has chosen these specific people to be in this game. And she wants them to get to know each other, right? Like, that's what the first day is. They're supposed to introduce themselves and get to know each other. And then keeping the fact that you will lose your memories, keeping it until close to the end when they're already friends, I think that is also intentional. Rion thinks that she just forgot to mention that rule. And Subaru thinks that she doesn't want to grant a wish at all. I don't think that's the case. I think she doesn't care. And I think she wanted them to be friends because I think this is supposed to be a difficult choice. And I think it's supposed to be a choice. I think it's supposed to be a choice of memories, right? I think you're supposed to choose the memories. She won't care either way, but that's the intention of the castle, really. And I think Kitajima is the human part of that, right? She makes it easier for these kids to be able to go to the castle. And she basically gives them free therapy by talking to them and helps them get closer to each other and also feel more comfortable as themselves and gives them a place in the school if they need it, like Urashino, and just helps them in that human aspect.
But okay, so then I go back to what human, especially teacher who cares about kids, would like be down for this thing where if they don't leave by 5 p.m. the wolves come and eat them.
But we don't know what that means.
I know, but it's just like, what is it? And like, why are we down? Like, it was pretty scary when it got close to 5 that one time.
Do you know, like, the intention of boogeyman stories, right? If you're out in the woods past this time, the boogeyman will get you. They're not real, but they set rules for children.
Mm-hmm.
I think creating the structure for the kids and, like, scaring them a little bit so that they act accordingly and they don't become reliant on the castle. They don't stay there all the time, because that would be just as bad.
But couldn't a kid still just stay? I guess the idea is just they won't.
They won't because they're scared of the boogeyman figure, right? This is also me assuming that it is just a story. It's not real.
Yeah.
But that could be the situation.
Yeah, it's just like they wait so close to the end that one time that it almost seemed like it was challenging for Kokoro to leave because she was like getting knocked over and stuff.
Yeah, it was shaken a bit. It got a little dicey. But it's still like only a wolf howl, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like some tremors going on. It could just be the wolf queen. She is a wolf. But I don't know. I think 100% Kitajima is connected to the castle. I think it's impossible otherwise, considering all the things she knows. Like, she has to be. But yeah, is she an entity as well? Or some kind of assistant? Or maybe like a winner? I don't know.
Yeah. Some other things. Do we think someone will actually do the wish?
I mean, I think no. I think it would defeat the purpose if somebody did the wish. Because I think the only person who makes sense to win the game would be Kokoro. Both because, I mean, she's the main character, would make sense. But also because of her interest in fairy tales.
Right. It does seem centered around her.
Yeah, symbolically, she's very connected to the castle. So it would make sense if she found the key, if she found the room. But her wish is for Sanada to not exist anymore. Which is like a fine wish, but it does not solve your problems, right?
Well, yeah, and also like like I mentioned earlier, she actually doesn't want to leave the house at all, like even to go somewhere else. She did almost do it with like, oh, you can go to the Juku by your grandparents. That was the closest she got, but like she still really doesn't want to leave, so it is more than just her.
Yeah, but it's easy to blame one person, right? And I think the only thing else she would wish for would be that she remembers these people, right? But you don't need to wish that. As long as you don't make a wish, that's what you get. So I don't think there will be a wish at all.
Well, let me come with a counterpoint. So at the beginning of the book, there is a quote that says, "In another world, we were already friends," which makes me think that they are going to do the wish. That they're going to decide that someone should do the wish, probably Kokoro, and willingly forget things because they trust that they will become friends in the outside world, or because they will create enough friendship in the outside world that they are guaranteed to remember it without the castle.
That would feel like a Studio Ghibli ending, wouldn't it?
Because I don't know why that quote would be there. Like, to say in another world we were already friends, that sounds like we don't know each other right now, but secretly we did, which would require them to forget it.
Yeah, I could see that. I would be so curious what the wish would be.
Maybe if they all come up with some really good wish that makes them feel really good about themselves, that they will be willing to let it go.
Yeah.
Another one I had was, like, if we think someone will get caught by the wolves, but it sounds like you don't think the wolves are real, so... I just kind of thought because they wouldn't I didn't think they'd bring it up unless it was possible. Like, the moment that they were like, if you're here past 5, you'll get caught by the wolves, I was like, cool, someone's definitely getting caught by the wolves.
I don't know. I feel like the wolves... If somebody does get caught by them, I don't think they'll die. I think it's too late for any of these characters to die.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that'd be way too big a deal.
Also, it feels too late to act like a dumbass in the castle.
That's fair.
Like, it's January.
But I think it would just be more of like an escaped us thing, and like maybe they're just too far from the mirrors to get there in time, you know?
So maybe like Aki. I could see Aki getting caught by the wolves. If she's so desperate to find the key.
Maybe. Oh, that's a good point. That sounds really dramatic.
She could probably stay. That's sad, though.
Yeah.
And then what happens? Do you, like, wish... I guess, that could be true. If Aki gets caught by the wolves and something happens to her, do you then wish to go back to before, right? You entered the castle, and then she would presumably be there again. Or even wish before that, before you started Yukishina, and then Rion doesn't go to Hawaii.
Oh, gosh.
And now they're all together.
I would think they would just wish for her to come back, like, without going back in time.
Yeah, unless you can't.
Yeah.
I don't know. Wish logic?
Yeah,
who knows?
I do think we're going to get some grouping, some factions on the memory versus wish thing. Right now it seems like it's Aki on one side and everyone else in the other, but I don't think it's going to stay that way.
Yeah, because there's certain characters we don't know about, right? Like Subaru, we don't know.
Yeah, Subaru is one of the ones I think will switch over.
Yeah, I think shockingly, he'll be Wish side. And then Fuka, I think also be Wish.
Oh, interesting. That'll be some drama.
Yeah, because she was like already expecting for them to exchange contact info. So I don't think she's fussed about the memory thing.
I would bet you those who we know the least about are going to be on the Wish side. It's like, I think that's the kind of general categorization.
Yeah, and Kokoro, I think, will ride the middle for as long as possible.
That's probably true. I guess I thought she was going to do the memory side, but that's a pretty good guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think she will be memory, but I think she won't, like, actively say, because I think she'll try to keep the peace as long as possible. But Urashino is very much like, I will take the key and I will throw it away, so we do not forget each other. He is very much memory. Leon would be interesting, though. We like also a character we do not know enough about.
He's giving neutral vibes too. I wonder what he would do.
That would also be a good opportunity for Kokoro and him to get closer. If they're kind of like hovering in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily because they're choosing one way or the other, but because like they don't want to fight. I don't know. They seem like the characters the most that want to be friends with everybody. Kokoro because like she hates being excluded and is nervous, but Rion is actively like, we should get together, we should hang out. Like, he is feeling exceedingly lonely and is trying to be friends, you know?
Yeah. I was going to say, I feel like he's a bit ambivalent, but you're right. He is making some efforts.
Yeah, I think at first seemed very ambivalent because he was exploring on his own and, like, he wasn't really friends with Subaru and Masamune, but even Kokoro, when she saw those two together, she was like, oh, they're, like, friends. So it did immediately start to feel very cliquey. And then you have the girls as a group, and obviously nobody can be friends with Urashino because he was a freak in the beginning. So yeah, Rion was kind of feeling excluded in a way we haven't really gotten to explore, but he's an interesting one. I have a lot of thoughts, as you can tell. We'll see. I think regardless, it'll be a pretty hopeful, positive ending. It just depends on if they remember or not, but still hopeful, I assume.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I would have been down for a story that was more about the key hunt, personally, but but I'm not upset with what it is.
It did kind of promise, like, a secrets of the castle being unlocked and, like, a game going on, and we haven't really gotten that so far, but I for some odd reason, it's not as, twisting me up as much as other books have.
Yeah, I know, I feel the same. I do think that there's enough substance to this book that it feels good still.
Yeah. So next time we're going to finish up this book, Lonely Castle in the Mirror, and we've got the third semester and a bit. As always, for your own thoughts and theories, it's 5050_books, and also on Goodreads. We do update on Goodreads if you ever want to drop a comment there. But yeah, as always, everything is in the description, including any trigger warnings if you want to see. And we'll finish up next time. And I'm sure it'll be great. I'm excited.
Me too.
So see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.